All right, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something so huge, so fundamental to our lives that we barely even notice it. How does the basic stuff of our planet, the rocks, the water, the forests, turn into the world that we actually live in? Let's get into it.
No, really, I mean it. Just for a second, look around the room you're in. That phone you're holding, the chair you're sitting on, maybe the drink next to you. Every single one of those things started out as something in nature. And the journey from that to what you have right now, well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. Okay, so first things first, we have to figure out what a resource even is. What makes a random rock or a river or a patch of dirt something we actually call a resource? Turns out it's way more than just being there. So, at its simplest, a resource is anything that can help us out, that can satisfy a need. That seems pretty straightforward, right? But here's the catch, and this is super important. Not everything in our environment automatically gets that title. It has to pass a very specific 3-point check first. And here they are, the 3 big keys to unlocking a resource's potential. First, it's got to be technologically accessible. I mean, if there's gold at the center of the earth, it's not a resource if we can't get to it, right? Second, it has to be economically feasible. It can't cost more to get it than what it's actually worth. And third, and this is the one people forget, it has to be culturally acceptable. A thing isn't really a resource if society decides for whatever reason that we shouldn't be using it. It's only when all 3 of those boxes are checked that a piece of nature really becomes a resource. Now, if you look back at those 3 keys, technology, economics, culture, what's the one thing they all have in common? Well, that leads us to the single most important part of this whole equation: us, humans. It's a really common way to think about it, isn't it? That the earth is just this big treasure chest, and we just open it up and take out all this free stuff. But is that really what's happening? And the answer is a big fat no. They are not free gifts. Resources aren't just found, they are made. It's our activities, our smarts, our work that takes some raw material from nature and actually transforms it into something we can use. This diagram just lays it out perfectly. Look at that triangle. You've got nature, technology, and our institutions, things like governments and companies. And who's right there in the middle connecting all of it? Human beings. We're the ones using technology to interact with nature, and we build institutions to make it all happen faster and better. Without us in the center, a forest is just trees and a rock is just a rock. We're the secret sauce.
Okay, so we're essential. We get it. We're the ones who create resources. But what happens when we use that amazing power without really thinking it through? Well, that kind of indiscriminate, thoughtless use has led us to some pretty major problems.
Yeah, when we just take like it's a free-for-all, this is what happens. We start running out of stuff, depleting resources. All that wealth ends up in the hands of just a few people, creating massive inequality. And of course, the planet pays the price with huge ecological crises, from pollution all the way to climate change.
And let's just make this real for a second. Imagine waking up tomorrow and all the oil is just gone. Think about it. No gas for cars, trucks, or planes. The entire global supply chain for everything you buy just grinds to a halt. Not to mention plastics and how much of our electricity generation is tied to it. Our lives would be unrecognizably different. The stakes are just incredibly high. And if that wasn't complicated enough, the problem isn't just about how much stuff we have left. It's also about where that stuff is. Resources are scattered unevenly all over the globe, which means some places are swimming in one thing but have absolutely none of another. This creates a whole new level of challenge. So all that imbalance, all that complexity, it really points to one clear answer. We can't just wing it anymore. We absolutely have to have a plan, a smart, coordinated strategy for how we manage all this stuff for the future. And India is a perfect case study for why this is so critical. Just look at this table. It's wild. You've got states like Jharkhand that are loaded with minerals and coal, but are economically lagging. Then you have Arunachal Pradesh with tons of water, but not enough infrastructure. Rajasthan has amazing potential for solar and wind energy, but it's desperate for water. And Ladakh has this incredibly rich cultural heritage, but is short on basic infrastructure and minerals. This kind of patchwork proves that a single, simple plan for everyone just isn't going to cut it.
Exactly. Because of that incredible diversity, planning can't just come from the top down. It has to be balanced. It has to happen at every single level, from the national government all the way down to the local town council, if it's going to have any chance of actually working.
So, how's it actually done? Well, it's a pretty detailed process. First, you gotta figure out what you even have. That means surveying, mapping, and really getting a handle on the quality and quantity of your resources. Step 2, you build the system to manage it. You need the right tech, skilled people, and the right institutions. And finally, step 3, and this is the big one, you have to make sure your resource plan actually lines up with the country's overall development goals. They have to work together.
But here's the thing. A plan, no matter how brilliant and detailed it is still just a piece of paper. For it to really work, it needs something more. It needs the right mindset, the right philosophy behind it. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important idea. See, a good plan isn't enough on its own. It's brought to life by a shared belief in conservation. That means actively fighting against irrational consumption and overusing things. It's the philosophy, the why, that gives every decision in the plan its meaning.
And really, who said it better than Gandhiji? There is enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed. This quote is just so powerful because it cuts right to the heart of the whole issue. The planet can provide for what we need. It just can't keep up with endless greed. That's the moral bedrock of conservation.
You know, he was so ahead of his time on this. He knew the root cause of our problems wasn't a lack of stuff, but this toxic mix of human greed and technology that's used exploitatively without wisdom. He was a huge advocate for production by the masses, not mass production, a subtle but incredibly important difference. And when you look at a chart like this, it really hits home just how massive the scope of this is. We're talking about everything from the natural to the human, the renewable to the non-renewable. Every single one of these categories needs that same level of care and planning.
And that really brings us to the main takeaway. The crucial point is this. Just having a bunch of resources doesn't automatically mean you'll have development. We've seen so many countries that are rich in resources but still poor. Real, lasting, sustainable development only happens when you combine those resources with the right tech, good institutions, and, most critically, thoughtful human beings who are planning for the future. Because in the end, the most powerful, the most important resource on this entire planet isn't oil or diamonds or water. It's our human ability to think, to innovate, to plan, and to care. The ultimate resource is you. So the only real question is, how are you going to use it? Okay, so what's the missing piece? What's the secret sauce? Well, here are these secret ingredients. It's kind of like having all the best ingredients to bake an incredible cake. You've got the flour, the sugar, the chocolate, but you don't have an oven, you don't have a recipe, and nobody knows how to bake. The potential is all there, but you just can't turn it into an actual cake. So the key takeaway is this. Development only really kicks off when raw resources meet human capability.
So, if you were put in charge of a country as massive and diverse as India, what would you do? I mean, you can't just wing it, right? You'd need a solid plan, a really, really good one. And that's exactly where we're headed next, the art of resource planning.
So what is resource planning really? Well, it's a lot more than just making a list of what you've got. You can think of it like playing a giant nationwide game of chess. You have to strategically identify all your pieces, understand their unique strengths, and then make deliberate moves to hit your long-term goals for the whole country. In India, this huge strategic game follows 3 key steps. First, you've got to know exactly what you're working with. That's your inventory. Step 2, you build the machine to process it all. That means getting the right technology, the skilled people, and the strong institutions. And finally, step 3, you make sure that machine is driving toward the right destination. You do that by matching your resource plans with your bigger national goals. It's like a 3-step dance to create real sustainable progress. Okay, let's bring this whole conversation down to earth. Literally. We're going to zoom in on the one resource we all use every single day, no matter where we live: land. So, how is India doing? Let's check out the report card. Just look at this. This chart shows so clearly that India isn't just one kind of place. It's this incredible mosaic. We've got these huge plains that are perfect for agriculture, majestic mountains that are the source of our life-giving rivers, and plateaus that are basically our national treasure chests, packed with minerals and fuels. Every single piece is vital to the whole picture. Now, check this out. Take a really close look at these 2 charts side by side. What do you see? The amount of land for farming, that hasn't changed a whole lot. But wow, look at how our forests have grown. And then look at the area used for things like cities, roads, and factories. It's exploded. What does that tell you about how India has changed in the last 60 years? It tells a really powerful story of a nation on the move. I want you to remember just one number: 33%. So what is it? It's not just some random statistic. It's a goal. It's a national ambition that was set way back in 1952. It's the percentage of our country that should be covered by forests to keep our whole ecosystem healthy and in balance. It's the big target we're all aiming for. But you know, all this development, all this change, it comes at a cost. The more we use our land, the more we risk damaging it. And this brings us to a huge challenge that we all face: land degradation and the urgent mission to start healing our planet. Before we jump into the solutions, let's just take a moment and reflect on this thought from Mahatma Gandhi. It just perfectly captures what conservation is all about. The earth provides everything we need to live well. The whole system only starts to break down when greed pushes us to take more than our fair share and more than the land can possibly give. So, what exactly do we mean by land degradation? The easiest way to think about it is that the land is just getting exhausted. We take and take through things like cutting down forests or pollution, but we don't give anything back. And eventually, the land just gets worn out, and it can't support the life, the food, and the environment that depends on it anymore. But here's the good news. This is a problem we actually know how to solve. We have an entire toolkit ready to go to fight back and heal the land. From planting trees and managing how animals graze to smarter mining and industrial practices, these aren't just wishful ideas. They are real, practical solutions we can start using right now. We're about to explore the very foundation of the subcontinent, its incredibly rich and diverse soils. Have you ever really thought about what's right under your feet? I mean, it's not just dirt, right? It's more like a living library, holding the stories of geology, climate, and life itself. Okay, so take a look at this. This isn't just a slice of earth. It's what we call a soil profile. It's a living, breathing system with its own distinct layers. You've got that rich, organic topsoil where all the action happens, then the subsoil below it, and way down at the bottom, the parent rock where this whole process began. And get this, it can take millions of years to create just a few centimeters of that precious topsoil. Millions! So, the main thing to remember is that soil is a huge deal. Our source material calls it the most vital, renewable natural resource. It's the entire medium for plant growth and supports this massive, complex ecosystem. Honestly, without it, life as we know it just wouldn't be possible. All right, let's dig even deeper, shall we? Without healthy soil, I mean, it's the foundation of everything. Our food, our forests, our very existence. And in India, we have an incredible variety of it, and each type has its own unique story. Just look at this map. It's an incredible patchwork of colors, isn't it? Each one of those colors represents a different kind of soil, a different chapter in the story of our land. So this map is going to be our guide. Let's take a quick whirlwind tour of India's soil. And our very first stop brings us right to the heartland of India, the vast and incredibly fertile northern plains. You know, this region is one of the biggest agricultural powerhouses in the world. And the secret, well, it's all in the soil. And here it is, alluvial soil. This is by far the most widespread and important soil in all of India. Think of it as a gift from the three great Himalayan river systems, the Indus, the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra. They deposit all this rich silt, and that constant replenishment is what makes it so unbelievably fertile. This amazing fertility is exactly why alluvial soil is so important. It's just packed with nutrients like potash, phosphoric acid, and lime, which is the perfect recipe for growing the crops that feed the country, like sugarcane, paddy, and wheat. And it's no surprise that these are some of the most densely populated regions, all thanks to this agricultural wealth. But wait, there's a little more to it. See, not all alluvial soils are the same. They're actually classified by age. You've got Bangar, which is the older soil. It has more of these little calcium carbonate nodules called kankar, which makes it less fertile. And then you have Khatar. That's the newer, fresher deposit, which gets replenished by floods every year, making it much more fertile. Okay, time to move on. From the river plains of the north, our journey now takes us south into the huge expanse of the Deccan Plateau. The geology and the climate here are totally different, and you guessed it, so is the soil. And welcome to the land of black soil.
As you can see, it's black, and it's absolutely famous for growing cotton. That's why you'll often hear it called black cotton soil. Locally, it's also known as regur soil.
Now, the magic of black soil is all in its texture. It's made of these super fine clay particles, which give it this amazing ability to hold moisture. It's like a natural sponge. This is so important for crops during the dry seasons. It's also full of nutrients, and you can find it all across the plateaus of Maharashtra, Saurashtra, and Mala.
Our journey isn't over yet. There's still so much variety to see. Over in the eastern and southern parts of the Deccan Plateau, we find red and yellow soil. It forms on crystalline rocks, and it gets its reddish color from iron. And when the iron hydrates, gets wet, the soil turns yellow. Then you've got laterite soil. The name comes from the Latin word for brick, later. It forms in places with high temps and heavy rain, which causes something called intense leaching. Basically, all the good stuff gets washed out. This makes the soil acidic, but hey, with the right care, it's perfect for growing tea and coffee.
Now let's head west into the desert regions. Here we find arid soil. It's pretty much what you'd expect, sandy in texture and very saline, or salty. In fact, the salt content can get so high in some areas that people can actually get common salt just by evaporating the water from the soil. How wild is that?
For our final stop, we're climbing high into the mountains. Here, you'll find forest soils. And what's really fascinating about them is how their texture completely changes with elevation. Down in the valley sides, the soil is loamy and silty, really nice. But as you climb higher up the slopes, it becomes much more coarse and grainy. So we've seen this incredible diversity, this literal foundation for life all across India. But here's the thing. This amazing resource is fragile, and it's in danger. The natural balance between how fast soil is created and how fast it's being lost is getting seriously disturbed. So what actually happens when we tip that balance too far? What are the consequences when the forces of erosion, the stripping away of that protective soil cover, start to win the fight? Well, the results can be absolutely devastating. Just look at this. These images show two types of water erosion. On the left, that's gully erosion. That's where running water literally carves deep channels into the ground, making the land completely useless for farming. And on the right, you have sheet erosion, where water just flows over a large area, slowly and silently washing away that precious layer of topsoil.
So what's causing all this? Well, it's a mix. You have natural forces, of course, wind, water, glaciers, they've always been around. But the real problem is that human activities are speeding up the process to a really dangerous level. Things like deforestation, overgrazing by animals, and large-scale construction and mining are making things so much worse.
It can all sound pretty bleak, I know. But here's the good news. There is hope. We understand what the problem is, and we've actually developed some really smart and effective solutions to fight erosion and conserve our soil for the future. And here are 4 really effective methods. First, there's contour plowing. It's a simple idea. You just plow along a slope's natural curves, which slows water down instead of letting it rush straight downhill. Then, for steep slopes, there's terrace farming, which is basically cutting steps into the hillside to stop erosion. You also have strip cropping, where you plant strips of grass between your crops to break the force of the wind. And finally, planting shelter belts, just rows of trees, which act as a powerful shield against wind erosion, especially out in those arid regions. So the soil beneath our feet is so much more than just ground. It's a shared inheritance, a living resource that sustains every single one of us. It's a legacy handed to us from the past, and it's our responsibility to protect it for the future. So the question this explainer really leaves us with is this: how will we choose to protect it?